right now the new iPads come in 2 specific form factors. So there's an 11-inch and there's a 13-inch iPad. As to why they decided to increase...
Is someone going to work with a full-size television in their hand?
That's the thing.
Boss.
That's the thing for me. That's what was frustrating me from the very beginning. And this is the first 5 minutes of the presentation. Na bado hata kutajia upuzi ingine yenye walifanya.
Twende.
So I'm starting there.
Mimi leo ni water down.
So welcome everybody to the lead series. I'm your host for the day, Thomas Hayuaki, and I'm joined by my good friend
Ignatius Auma.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure. I know it's been a while since we've shot, but we've had very, very busy months. And there's some cool announcements we are going to make over the course of maybe the next 2 weeks or so. So kindly just keep checking up on us, and I'm sure we'll be able to catch your attention with whatever it is we want to announce. So we can't say a lot about it. I think we're in the process of planning. Yeah, but that's something that we'll be sharing with you guys once the opportunity comes. But before we go into the episode, Iggy, how have been the days? It's been a while since we've been in this studio. Yeah.
It's been a minute. Yeah, so things have been a little bit engaging. Basically in the office, you know that now we have 2 offices, our head office here and another one along Bunyala Road. So personally, I take much of my time there with a lot of activities. Some of them are just building towards what we are about to engage you guys. So we're just looking forward to make it up or build it up to fruition. But I'm here. We are here to share content and also just to ensure that our family, our community also get something as much as we are engaged. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, for me as well, it's been very, very hectic. I think between planning for said activity, we'll keep on saying said activity until we announce by the way. Just bear with us. Yeah. But
it's a coded language.
Yeah, between planning for said activity and also attending different keynotes. I think this is the first year we've actually attended all 3 of them. Virtually though. And so between attending, sitting down, documenting your findings, turning it into a script and all of these different things. It's been hectic, but again, it's all for a good cause. Remember, the podcast is really just about trying to understand tech at that high level, and then come and break it down to where you can be able to see, genuine user needs, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is what this podcast will try and cover, I think, above everything else. So that's what we are up to. And we'll be able to share the rest as we continue to engage in this particular podcast. But once again, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who haven't subscribed, tafadhali, iyo button iko tu pale. Is it at the bottom left? Yeah, just make sure that you do so. So without wasting any time, I wanted us to quickly just start by covering the stand innovation segment. There's some cool stuff that I saw online. I'm sure you know who working at Amazon are.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so...
And maybe, Tom, sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
Before you go any further, maybe, I know our listeners may be wondering why 2 sitting today, only 2 people, and they are used to quite a number of faces and some beautiful faces as well. Yeah. But it's just the gents today. Yeah,
that's true. So actually our moderators, Grace and Cheryl, are involved in a very, very critical program activity for our organization, Acquict. And so they send their regards virtually, of course. And they're with us in spirit. They're finalizing an activity in Machakos County. And hopefully they'll be back to cover the rest of the episodes, especially within this month.
And they're also preparing something for them. So once they're ready, watakuja watandike.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so I was going through online, and I saw this cool article around Amazon, which again, for some of you who don't know, is actually one of the biggest e-commerce platforms in the world. And the wonderful story is that they've finally entered or penetrated pause the African market. So they launched their e-commerce platform in South Africa. Yeah, and it's such an amazing thing because one, you have to remember that this is a global e-commerce platform. So one of the biggest benefits that come with that is that, first of all, for the consumer market there, they'll be able to access global and localized products.
Yes.
So all products around tech, sports, home and furniture, what else? Fashion and design, all of these different things, wakina Gucci, Givenchy, Nini. If it's tech, iPhone, Samsungs, tablets, iMacs, which we'll be talking about later during the episode. So all of this will be accessible to them at a way more convenient way than maybe what we are used to. Like, for example, for some of us here in Kenya, for us to even buy a machine, depending on which machine you're buying, if it's a Surface laptop, you have to essentially purchase and wait for around 2 weeks
for it to be
shipped to get here. So the fact that you have a platform that's closer to the African market and that they can be able to actually purchase, I think it's a very cool thing. And outside of that, there are other benefits, by the way, that they had mentioned. So one of the things they're doing as they're rolling it out in the country is that they're providing free shipping.
Oh yeah. In the first, in your first order, and also within the first order that maybe goes beyond $27.
Yeah. Which is always it's always a cool thing because, again, free shipping. If you can be able to have that with all the orders that you're making above $27, that's very, very cool. And to add to that, it's not just the free shipping stuff that's cool. It's obviously the fact that they've set up around 3,000 pickup locations.
Yeah.
So even if kama we ni mtu mwenye unapenda kuwa secretive, you don't want people to know where you stay exactly. You can just tell them, for example, to drop it at Mlolongo, or drop it at let's say South C, South B, all of these different places. So I like the fact that in launching it, they've really focused on the user experience or the consumer experience and the convenience that comes with that. And so that's also something that really stood out to me. And then let's not forget the traders. One thing about Amazon, through research that we did, is that they're very, very big on promoting MSMEs, localized MSMEs, to the point where I think they boast of around 60% occupants with each and every country that they're in.
Whoa.
They make sure that around 60% of
that's
the
a
retailers
very huge
that are
market grasp.
Yeah.
Wow.
For those local retailers, it's going to be a cool thing. So there are a lot of positives that come with that. I like the fact that it opens up this whole other market for MSMEs in South Africa. I like the fact that it encourages a lot of consumer investment because, again, most of the products and services are there. And let's not forget jobs. Jobs. Amazon mali yote yenye naendanga na majob. So for the guys who are in is it called the courier service, watu wenye wako hapo, that's jobs for around anywhere between 5 to 15,000 depending on how it grows over the years. So kudos to Amazon, kudos to South Africa for making it happen, and I'm hoping that hizi masafari nimeona watu wakienda, sitasema ni wakina nani. I hope that I can negotiate on our behalf so that we see how Amazon also coming in Kenya.
Sure.
And there's potential for that. I mean, we've done well with Gigi. We've done very well with Jumia. So it's the next step logically because there is a space for e-commerce platforms here in Kenya.
For me, what really intrigued me about that kind of innovation or approach, one, Amazon is bringing years of data, years of research, years of experience. And if I can say, actually, Amazon is the founders of e-commerce platforms
in
back
the way
in
that
the
it's
years.
structured.
And if you see, they've really relied so much on the data, data collection over the years, and they understand customers best. That's the very first thing, the experience, and also bringing all these how to shape and also do it or bring just relay the products in the best way. The other thing, or the last thing that I really also loved about it is enabling or allowing the local producers also just to pitch their products there. One, you know, at the current moment, let us say with us in Kenya, when you ship anything within the Amazon platform, definitely it's going to be an important product from other countries and things like that. But imagine a scenario whereby now even the locals at South Africa are going to be able to even pitch their products globally, which is a very key and more like opening their market scope. It's a very key thing.
So again, kudos to both parties. We hope and pray that, digital clubs, I keep forgetting. So we hope and pray that they can continue to expand. And hopefully Kenya becomes one of the countries where we can be able to cause that. Sisi tuko na spending habits mbaya. So the moment hiyo inakuja, wajue that biashara yao itagrow.
Itagrow.
So that's it for weekly segment, for the Stand Innovation segment. I think we can jump into weeklies. So Iggy, as the resident expert on all matters IT infrastructure and networking, we had an issue a few weeks ago. I don't know if it was 1.5 weeks ago or 2
weeks ago.
I'm blanking. We had an issue 2 weeks ago. Some of us who work and play online woke up to no internet. I'm seeing major publications saying that there are slow internet speeds. There was no internet. So take us through what happened. I had issues to do with cyber, fiber cut, but hiyo ni space yako. Wetuambie ni nini ilifanyika.
Okay. What I can say about it in general, first of all, I was also shocked, and I thought it's just our normal either power blackouts and stuff.
Actually, I thought the same as well,
Safaricom is having an issue and stuff or different. But I got shocked that it's most of our major ISPs are having challenges because personally at home I don't use a Safaricom. I use a different ISP. But I could see that in both platforms, when I go to my phone on cellular data, I was really struggling in accessing. So maybe
which service provider do you use by these people?
No, it's a very small service provider. It's called Linkfi. It's a very small service provider, but is good.
Yeah, sorry, continue.
It's okay. So maybe just to give you a deep dive into what really happened, you know, in Africa in general, we rely so much, our internet connectivity is linked so much into the subsea fiber cables that really supply
the
internet.
fiber optic cables.
Yes. We don't use so much of satellite data. Or we don't rely so much on satellite connectivity.
That's relatively new technology.
Yeah, it's relatively new. So with that in place, there was some challenge with all these infrastructure, especially all the submarine cables that is supplying across Africa, but specifically East Africa and South Africa.
Samaki ilikula cable ama?
Tukiangalia the challenges that can cause that. First of all, let me just give a visual image of how or who really supplies us with internet. We have several suppliers. One of them is East Africa, East Africa submarine cable systems. That is easy. that has around 10 kilometers of coverage with their subsea cables.
10 or 10,000?
10,000 kilometers, yes, that runs all the way from, it runs all the way to South Africa, but traversing through Sudan. We have also Djibouti, we have Tanzania, we have Kenya and Mozambique.
Coverage,
all those countries being connected, or running all the way to South Africa. The other also key submarine cable providers are these CCOM. That is majorly by South African, but also
the Southern African region.
Yes. But also run traversing all those countries that I've mentioned. Now, there are also other key fundamental providers, fiber providers, like we have the Africa-Asia, Europe cable, and also we have Europe-India grid that also supplies net, and it also just spans across and supplies as internet.
So these cables cover the global atmosphere.
Actually, I'm just talking on the East Africa and South Africa side. We also have other cables supplying on the West Africa, and if you check on the global map, these cables run deep inside the bed of the sea, where it lies on the ground, and the internet is really crossing at a high speed. When we talk about the challenge that happened, what really can cause or can lead to fiber cuts and things like that? This is coupled by either human activities or just natural calamities. To be specific, for human activities are either fishing activities, or let's say war, maybe pinning to Yemen, or Yemen war back in 2012, that the rebels were
They decided to cut the cable.
No, you can't really go deep in there and cut the cable. They actually maliciously targeted their missiles to these fiber cables. It really rendered some of them not working. And those are some of the activity. In natural calamities, we can either have earthquakes, you can either have landslides. And actually, in some years back, in Cote d'Ivoire, there was a huge rock slide that really created a huge fiber cut in West African region. But that was solved. It was, I think, 2 to 3 years ago, but it was solved. When we are talking about our internet issue at that time 2 weeks ago, what really happened? There was a serious deep sea fiber cut in South Africa, where in one of their stations. So that ended up compromising the accessibility of both Easy and also CCOM. And so much of internet could not be accessed, but a lot of mitigation and a lot of
they tried, because I think by Monday, I think at around 10 or 11,
at least there was some.
I was seeing at least data now beginning to transfer.
Data. At that time, yes, there was that fiber cut. However, people could access internet. It was, though, in kind of not very stable, but people could access. How were people able to access? You know, with internet service providers, you don't rely on one supplier. You connect yourself to several. So imagine that you are connected to both Easy Fiber, Easy ISP, and also CCOM, but both of them are down. What do you do? So you need to route your traffic on another channel as well. So that's what they did, just routing traffic to I think it was these Africa, Asia, Europe
the
channel.
fiber cables,
and also the Europe, India grid that was able to help at that time. So it was a way to just mitigate, and it was a way to help within that time. But as per now I am certain that the issue has been solved because we are on stable.
Yeah, we are back. I think what I'm learning from what I learned from that particular period was that one, we need the internet. We need the internet, and I'm very, very serious about this because I think I was so used to this environment of I just work on my stuff, knowing that it will be automatically be uploaded to
for backup
iCloud,
and stuff.
to iCloud, OneDrive, and Google Drive as well. And so when I woke up on Sunday, tried doing stuff. I tried bringing down the files so that I can continue working, and nothing was working. Nothing was working. So one thing I've realized is that we can't survive without it. It's very, very difficult because for those 48 hours or so, Ignatius, my friend, ushaikaa mpaka sasa unaanza kupigia watu tu simu. Unaanza kuuliza watu, mnaendeleaje uko nyumbani, vitu ziko. So I called almost like 10, 15, 20 people because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't. My entire workstation exists online. Anything you see me working on, even on my desktop now, the only things that you'll see me working on are stuff that have a deadline of close of business to me. Once they're done, I just refresh it. At the end of every single day, I just refresh it. So it was a very difficult 48 hours, very traumatic. But yeah, I don't know for you how you manage the 48 hours.
Actually, that led me to hold a discussion with one of my very close colleague, John. And I was just asking him, now, with this current world of technology and everything at our disposal, what are the basic needs of a human being? And he was like, okay, number one is internet. Number one is internet. Because, okay, yes, the other basic needs, we know them.
Check meals, water, those ones God gave to us for free.
I don't know I don't know really how the entire globe will look like without internet at this current age and time. We'll maybe go back to the Stone Age where
that's I don't know if obviously there's no way the Bible would have highlighted this conversation, but I can assure you one of the biggest signs that we are heading towards Judgment Day is lack of internet. Hiyo tukiona imepotea for a month, sasa tunangoja sasa binguni ifunguke tu sasa. Wenye wanashuka washuke.
We've become dependent of technology, internet, and we can't work without it. Not that we've become slaves of it, but it has come to make our work easy. It has come to make all accessibility of anything that we do very easy. So we can't dispute that we need internet day in, day out. We need electricity. We need technology, be it digital devices and stuff. So it was just something to highlight that at where we are, we need more of it, not even just...
hakuna kumoderate. We are already in. So hakuna cha kumoderate. We need it. So, that was an interesting 48 hours. I'm glad to see that you've given us some context. I think, we've, I think, been in the tech industry for a while. Some of these things we've talked about, we've even done practically at very, very small scale levels. But it's nice to see. I haven't really, outside of maybe, activities in the lab and a lot of theory, I didn't really quite get the whole power behind fiber optic and its ability to use UV light to be able to essentially transfer data links. But now, as I was doing research about this specific outage, I realized that,
Actually, if you check into the infrastructure that is used to make the fiber cable itself, it's a lot of technology used in it, and in the core of that cable there is a glass strand that enables light to travel in it. Actually, the data that we consume mostly is brought to us through UV light. So at a very high speed. So it's a very high-end technology. However, we really enjoy what it brings.
You can imagine somebody structuring copper cables all the way throughout the sea.
No. Actually, with copper cables, more than 100 meters, you can't do anything with it.
By the way. That's true. That's true. You can imagine crossover cables running. That's tricky.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Na hizo kukulwa na samaki, haraka sana.
Because hizo samaki za kwenye wigi.
Tuendelee. Tupatie the next thing. Ukianza kusema samaki zetu na kuku za kinaia.
Zila submarine.
Nakimbia nazo.
So anyway, so on other news, recently, I think around 2-3 weeks ago, Apple had an event, an iPad event. And why I'm interested is that, as I'm sure you are aware, I've been around the Apple ecosystem for a long time. And I can tell you for a fact that for me, I think one of the most enjoyable devices that I've engaged with is an iPad.
Yes.
I like the fact that it's very, very, it's easy on the eye, it's easy on the hands. I can be able to use it, especially when I'm traveling, to do a few things here and there in an enhanced image, because again, sometimes also using your phone for long periods of time is a bit, it's just a bit weird. So I've had an iPad for a very, very long time. And it serves a lot of functions for me, from, quick emails, quick PDF reads, movies, a lot of music out there, as well as just, I don't know, there's something about its camera. I'm actually using, even as we speak now, a 10th generation iPad. So there's something about its camera and the fact that I can be able to see a picture more clearer compared to maybe an iPhone that I've loved using. So I had a lot of interest going into the event. I was able to attend it live. And I had a few issues, but let me start with the positives.
Okay.
Let me start with the positives. So one of the things that they screamed from the very beginning of their presentation is that, one, the form factor was going to change slightly, but significant enough to where you could be able to notice it. So unlike previous versions, including the one that I have, where it's around 10 inches, if I'm not wrong, right now, the new iPads come in two specific form factors. So there's an 11-inch and there's a 13-inch iPad. As to why they decided to increase... Is someone going to
work with a full-size television in their hand?
That's the thing.
Boss.
That's the thing for me. That's what was frustrating me from the very beginning. And this is the first 5 minutes of the presentation. Na bado hata kutajia upuzi ingine yenye walifanya.
Twende.
So I'm starting there.
Mimi leo ni kuwater down.
So as I was saying, Apple in their infinite wisdom, walikaa chini wakasema, okay, we'll release an 11-inch and the 13-inch iPad.
Watu watembea na TV.
So 13 inch is not a small. It's a 13-inch device is not small, and not even device.
Do you know the size of your MacBook?
Screen. This is an 11. Is it 11 or 12? This is an 11.5-inch screen. This one here. This is a MacBook Air. 11.5-inch screen.
Tablet 13.
Mtu anatoa tablet ya 13-inch. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so how am I supposed to navigate with this? Obviously, I'm not getting the 13-inch, but if I was to get that, how am I navigating with it? Because the whole thing about an iPad, the whole attractive thing about an iPad is that I can be able to I can sneak it in. I can sit somewhere. If I'm having coffee mahali, I can just chuck it. If I have a stand in maybe the Magic Keyboard, I can just chuck it. Na kidogo, if I do a few things here and there, bila kuchomea picha. iPad ukitoa manze msada fikiria ni kama unatoa a fully fledged computer. So I saw that and said, okay, let me give them an opportunity. Maybe they'll talk about more features, especially on the photography and videographic side, where they can justify the 13-inch coming out. So I gave them an opportunity. I just said, okay, let me listen to the other stuff and continue. So as they continued the presentation, they talked about the fact that for the first time now, we'll have iPads iPad Air running on M2 chips.
Yeah. I really
which is a
liked that
significant
too.
jump for me because first of all, ever since we moved to the up on silicon CPUs, the performance, the efficiency, the organic nature in which it just produces for you at every single opportunity has been amazing, regardless of whether you're using an iMac, a MacBook, an iPhone. It's been an amazing experience. So being able to jump from non-silicon iPads, which is where I was, to now an M2 seemed like a very good opportunity to do so. So I'm trying to see around about tests, but from what I'm gathering is that the speeds are up to 50% faster than the normal chips, which is also good. And with some of the advancements that we're having around gaming, especially using the iPad, and even just the productivity and creativity side, which I'll touch on when we start talking about the iPad Pro. It's a good hardware. It's good hardware infrastructure to kind of base all of those updates on. So those are just some of the things I saw. I know there are some that I can't be able to quite connect my mind, but so 11 and 13-inch versions, we have M2, the M2 silicon being added to the latest versions as well. And then another thing that they did that's quite significant is that now the base model is starting at 128 gigabytes instead of the 64 GB one, which is okay. I kind of survived for a long time with the 64 GB one because of the iCloud space. Okay. But I get the need to kind of increase it slightly, especially with the AI now coming into focus. So I guess that's cool. And then I think the last thing that kind of stood out is that now instead of having the camera
on the side,
portrait, it's typically on the portrait side, at the top center. It's now being placed on the landscape center. So the middle of that landscape layout, which I think makes a lot of sense, especially if you attend a lot of virtual meetings. Makes a lot of sense. And for those of you who might be worried that it wouldn't be able to capture in the same sort of way as what maybe the typical camera was capturing, it still has those AI features that can be able to ensure that it's focusing on the right sort of objects.
Now, you know, what I can really say on that, the previous model was based on, or they envisioned someone having it on the palm of their hand all the time. That's why even the main camera or the front camera was on portrait and the middle. Now, this other one gives you the landscape center kind of a console or center orientation. Why you need to place it horizontally on a table or on a desk and use it, because basically imagine carrying all that let's say carrying all that size with you all the time, and it's always on portrait. You'll really have a lot of muscle ache and things like that. So you typically just place it on a table and go on using it. And I think it's okay.
And for me, it shows you slowly by slowly, it shows you the direction that they're taking. We've always looked at an iPad as a device on its own. That's not a phone and that's not a laptop. But it's just strong enough to where you can be able to carry it around and still do quite a bit with it. But with that small addition, as they said in the presentation, I think what I'm realizing slowly by slowly, and you'll also realize as we cover the iPad Pro summary, is that we are slowly moving this particular device in its form factor towards the laptop environment. So it's going to be competing. My prediction is that in the next maybe 5 to 10 years or so, you'll be having iPads that, even the Air versions, you'll be having iPads that will be competing with laptops. And that's why their Magic Keyboard is actually very popular. That's why the Apple Pencil is very popular, which, by the way, is their second line of bullshit.
The peripherals, leave them aside. We need to unpack. Leave them
I have a rant on those ones separately. I have a rant on those ones. But just as a device, just as a device. Its form factor outside of the 13-inch one, I'm okay with it. I love the storage, the baseline storage, getting it to 128 GB, given that we're heading to the WWDC event, and we know they're going to be very big on AI. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the M2 chip, I think, is cool, given what people are using iPads for today. So I felt good about that presentation. I'm waiting to see when they'll get to Kenya. I think they've spoken of a price of around, I think, $599 and $799 for the 11 and 13-inch, respectively. So I know that's going to translate to around anywhere between 110 to 120, 120K here in Kenya. So we'll see how they come in. But I've been exploring maybe upgrading from where I am to an M2, possibly M3 chip. Obviously, M3 is not going to be there. So at least from a consumer's point of view, this seems okay. Now, the second part of the presentation, nakaleta sasa mzito sasa, nakaleta sasa machine yenyewe. So a few things that are similar about that is obviously, one, they still have an 11-inch and 13-inch version. That's
For
fine
Pro.
for Pro. The confusing thing is that the Pro models are significantly lighter than the Air models.
Yeah.
So I don't know from a marketing perspective, how do they now continue navigating with this Air name? Because the way Air was pitched to us.
How do you align Air to an heavier machine?
Because even when you go to when you look back at Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace. When you look at Steve Jobs' first presentation, when he introduced the Air version of Apple devices, one of the things he was very heavy on was the fact that this is light.
Yes,
it's light. I can be able to even put it on a file and
pick it with me.
So we are now moving towards a space where Pros are lighter,
while Air are heavier.
Airs are heavier. So I don't know if that was just a misstep on their side, or that's the direction that they want to take. But I'm really hoping that maybe in the coming years, because now these ones have been released, so we're looking at maybe a 2 to 3 year cycle. Maybe in the coming years they'll be able to figure out how to make that specific light, specific device.
Even that, looking forward to the future where they're going to develop a more better one.
Yeah.
There is a very important, or kind of a continuing cry from everyone, the users. Do you really listen to your users while developing these things?
That's my thing.
It's a very important thing, because you stand or you stay at your own corner, develop and say, this, you're going to like it. Tom likes using this. So, let me add a few more things so that he can like it better. Did you consult? Did you even get some more opinion on how to improve on it?
Yeah, they didn't, and this is the evidence. This to me proved that they didn't listen to anybody while releasing this. The ad that they did to introduce the iPad Pro was just a mess from top to bottom. How do you sit down and think that the best way to advertise a product that's supposed to encourage creativity and productivity is by setting up a workstation where all of these different instruments that we use on a day-to-day basis are being crashed by some object that I'm assuming is the iPad, that are being crashed in order to... And I know what they were trying to communicate. I know the intention was good, but hapo ndio unaulizwangu unasema, boss, uli consult na nani? Did you create a focus group? Did you try and, get the opinions of a few people here and the actual users? Because with iPads, let's be very honest. First of all, I've always had an issue with the Pro models for iPads, because a majority of the iPad population use the Air. So if you want to introduce us to the Pro, introduce it in a way in which we don't feel as if it's intimidating, we don't feel as if it's too much, because the people you are targeting, it's a very small percentage. You're not convincing a sound engineer or a videographer to purchase that to do their editing if they can be able to get an iMac or a MacBook. So you have to figure out, you have to create a balance through your ads that kind of, encourages this other community to also consider based on the features that you have, while at the same time also taking care of the pros, which now are guys who are in design, photography, videography, and even sound engineering.
There is this Swahili saying that goes, ukipata kijiko, usitupe kiganja. Like when you get a spoon, don't throw away your hand, because now you're going to use a spoon to eat is a new thing. Now you're going to throw out your hand. You're not going to use it anymore. Now, one thing that we can never walk away from, there is the underlying way that we've been using things, or we've been developing, we've grown knowing how to do things. That can never walk out of. It's us.
It's embedded.
Okay,
in what
it's
we do,
embedded in us. I know it's more or less like a very crude way, and maybe somewhat backward, but you'll always embrace and be happy in doing it that way. Now, with the rise of technology, it's not now the start button
it's
for
not
us
supposed to destroy,
do away with all these things. Let's say you want to do a real art. Are you going to do real art in an iPad and print it? We want the texture of an art and feel it, and also just see an artist really
going through that process.
Exactly. But it's with what they did, for me, it was more like,
ndo naambiwanga au kuuliza. So I get the intention, by the way, but I felt as if that was a missed opportunity to introduce us to a model that's significantly more expensive, that can maybe even serve us, depending on how it's presented. So I wasn't happy about that. But the things that were a bit positive about the Pro models is the fact that they're actually incorporating an M4 silicon chip. Forget M2, forget M3 that they've jumped. Wameruka straight to M4, which again, I was close to rant about it, but I just keep on reminding myself about the fact that, there's something big on AI that's coming. There's something very big on AI. There's something very big around creativity and productivity that's coming within the WWDC workshop. And so that's why I'm thinking they are trying to put the infrastructure necessary. They're trying to lay down the infrastructure that's necessary for them to be able to do so. So I understood. However, I wish they would have just maybe jumped to M3 so that they can have maybe the iMacs and the MacBooks come out with M4. But we'll see how that develops. So I'll still give them an opportunity. But I think the one thing that stands out is, again, the CPU speeds are at least 50% more compared to the M2. And then the display, that's sharpness and brightness, is on a whole other level. There's something in your litaja.
For the first time, they're using OLED, I think. And it's really making all these pictorial or the imagery just to be more crystal clear.
Actually, they're using a technology called ultra retina.
That
is the first time I've heard of that term. Si tunajuanga retina display, which when they put it on laptops, I think it'll change to game kabisa. But now they're talking of ultra retina displays. And by the way, within that, it's not just one OLED display. They've merged two of them. So you can imagine the processing power, especially from the point of view of just crisp imagery and also brightness. So that's very, very powerful. I'm interested to see how that's going to translate, even though I'm not going anywhere close to buying that because I know it's going to be extremely expensive. But introducing M4 at this particular stage, jumping all of these devices, again, was a bit weird, but I kind of understand. And then it goes into the other point that I wanted to make. The fact that with those resources, they've started now to, actually, they've already done it. They've now brought Logic Pro and Final Cut into the iPad experience. And I think one of the things that stood out was I saw somebody capturing, he was filming something. I wasn't quite sure what it was. But he was able to connect like 3 iPhones and now be able to capture the same video now using all of those different cameras. So with an iPad and 3 iPhones, he was able to create, I think, 6 to 8 different captures within that iPad workstation. So it even starts to give you ideas around whether you need to purchase a traditional camera, or you can just do it with, especially if you have like an iPad, which by the way has a very powerful camera, and an iPhone on the side. You can be able to have a full setup. I don't know. I think the production team can be able to get an opportunity and kind of share what their thoughts are on around that. But yeah, again, it keeps going back to what I've said, where M4 seems like a very big leap.
Sure.
But with things like that, things like the addition of Logic Pro, which is mainly used for sound engineering, it's beginning to make sense. The only issue or question that I have is I don't know how you do all of that with a touch interface. I don't know how you do the editing. I don't know how you do the rendering, all of these different activities that are involved in the production cycle. I don't know how you facilitate all of that with a touch interface.
But I think with the touch interface should make it even more easier and more faster to access all the components that you're working with, especially with the stylus. I saw it being used, and it was really making it so easier for someone to even improve or edit specific components within whatever you're designing, how you can even zoom further and give a touch to a specific component. I really liked that as well.
The preciseness.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's tricky to tell. Obviously they'll have to do a lot of showcases to kind of move people into that sort of space. The best user case that I saw for it, though, is just the whole note capture experience.
Yeah.
For me, I think that's one that's on another level. And with the Magic Pencil Pro and the Magic Keyboard setup, I think you can really do a lot. I used to have a pencil a long time back, but mtu aliiba, sijui kalikuwa nadhani ni kalamu. It's an actual pen, but I used to have one in 2021 for the iPad I was using. And it was so easy because I would just go into class and kind of
take your notes,
take my notes, highlight, do all of these different things. Yeah, and obviously, unlike an exercise book, you can't really lose an iPad. So I felt it was way more convenient, even from a learner's perspective, to kind of just do that using that said device. And that takes me to the last thing before we talk about prices. The peripheral devices for me are a good addition. I like what they keep on doing in terms of updating them. The only issue I have is why create an Magic Pencil Pro? Why add a Pro version to it? Just tell
you
us
already
that
have a pencil, but you're now bringing in a Pro
version,
and also there's a different one. There are almost 4 versions.
There are 4 versions.
Yes.
I'm even struggling to find out which version I had. Let me be very, very honest, because I bought them at the same time. So I was searching around today. Okay, can I use previous Magic Pencils in this new iPads, Air and Pro? And by the way, you can't.
They can't. You need to get a specific one for Air. You have to get a specific one to the
and I was trying
to
check. I don't have the prices here, but I think it's $129. The Magic Pencil Pro is $129.
It's $129.
And then the keyboard, I think, is around $229, if I'm not wrong. So anyway, we are talking about anywhere between 34 to 40,000 shillings for a pencil.
Now,
for a pencil.
The other question comes. I don't know if this was crossing your mind in any way. And I've seen this with iPhone, like with Apple products, all the way since I started interacting with them and since I started seeing people working with them. Whenever they come up with a very cool technology, they'll ensure that they lure you and make you a prisoner of them.
Yeah.
They give you the component, they give you the device, but they tell you there is this other thing that works with it.
You want to write notes?
You need to. Now, there is this, it works so well, and they are so good in showing you how it works well. But now, there's a catch for you to get it. Leave that aside. Check on how, actually, why were there issues with Apple, with their charging systems?
Yeah, it's because of that line of thinking.
Okay, why? But I think they're so creative. They create so good things. However, how you treat your customer or your clientele with this other peripheral personally is not something that I would really enjoy.
And then let me tell you that acha nikwambie ile denye niligundua amenishika. Even with that amount, when I saw the presentation for that pencil, I was like, hey, buda hii lazima nitashika. Hii lazima nitashika. So even after ranting and saying, hey, kwanza mnatuibia, I saw the presentation and I was like, hey, okay, haptic feedback. Hey, okay, I can change and work with different orientations. This one I'm buying.
Venye nilifika mwisho.
So I already saw the rumors also because I was watching it live. So I already saw people talking about 129, that's impossible. So I already saw that. So by the time ilikuwa inafika mwisho, I had a clue as to what the price was going to be. But when I saw the features of that pen, as little as they people think they are, haptic feedback is very important. If you're using a pen because remember, you're pointing it on a glass surface. So haptic feedback is kind of key.
Can you explain for us the technology?
So there's still a lot that I'm doing research on, but basically what haptic feedback is you see the way you use your phone, and every time you want to specifically click somewhere on your user interface, there's a vibration. So that tells you that you've selected something. If you long press, there's a specific type of air. So you can imagine having a pencil and you want to like long press something. You want to long press a specific area in your document. So it gives you feedback.
Then it gives that.
So that you can tell that, hey, okay, so that's been highlighted. I can move to the next thing. And then they have this hovering technology where you can also be able to hover your pointer, which now comes in form of your pencil. You can hover it around somewhere. And then when you get to a point, let's say if you get to a line or a sentence that you want to highlight, it will simply open a palette of some sort to give the colors that you can be able to use. So one of the things that maybe they need to spend more time talking about is that it reacts and engages with applications, products, services, and just data in general.
So it gives that real-time experience while interacting with it, and you have a real feel of interacting with such.
Real-time and nuanced experience. So the way that somebody might use it on Logic Pro and Final Cut is very, very different from the way I might use it if I'm documenting something on notes or even spreadsheets. So
but it will fit to that task.
It will fit to all of these different tasks. So I think that's what makes it a pro.
Nice.
I'm kind of fidgety on the price and stuff, but you can see there are a lot of user needs for it.
Sure.
There are a lot of features that I think there's something that they have towards the tip where you can be able to change the orientation. I didn't get time to really evaluate it, but I think as the episodes continue, we'll try and address that. But when it comes to functions, it makes a lot of sense. Pricing is where I have an issue with. The keyboard for me is okay. I'm glad that they added a larger trackpad. But again, the pricing is where I'm struggling with everything. So the iPad, I think the iPad Pro starts with the base model starts with around 256 gig. That's around $1,000, and then you have the 1 terabyte one that goes for around $1,300 respectively. So ukiweka hiyo into Kenyan shillings, then you add the peripheral devices.
160,
you can easily spend
160K.
Actually, if you put everything together, you can easily spend anywhere between 250 to 300K just to have that setup.
Bringing on the peripherals.
Yeah.
The catch.
Nakwambia, that's the type of environment. But in general, I still enjoyed the event. I'm trying to see if there's anything I've missed. I still enjoyed the event. I still thought that they really, especially from Apple Air's point of view, they can, despite that bad that they did, they can still salvage everything and have a completely new consumer base coming and purchase those products. And believe me or not, hizo Apple Pencil hizo tunayo Magic, they'll still sell them at that price. Na hizo vitu hazishukangi. So we'll see how that progresses.
You know, whatever will make them sell it, they've already created a need for it.
Yeah.
So you can't walk around it. You can't avoid it. If you need to complete a certain task, this is it.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing Apple knows how to do.
Trend.
Ahead
Marketing.
of everybody else. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to speak about that's closely related to that, I'm trying to make sure that it's on here as well, is that even before I went to that specific event, before we attended that one virtually, I was trying to look at the technological landscape and just the ecosystems that are coming out as a result of that. And I've noticed one thing. I know we had an argument about Samsung and Apple, but I'm hoping bygones are bygones. But so since then, I was trying to look at some of the ecosystems that are around. And I think there are two that came out very, very strongly. There was the Samsung one, because they essentially have the same sort of devices that Apple have. They have a very strong, powerful laptop. They have a tablet that, by the way, is ridiculous because we are complaining about a 13-inch. Samsung iko na tablet ya 14.5 inch. Ili hata huwezi toa sasa. Hiyo ukitoa unaonekana even a kilometer.
Ukiekelea kwa meza mtu anadhani una set up a living room in their restaurant.
Yeah.
Toa TV kidogo uanze kuweka ufa
DSTV na Bluetooth. Yeah. So I saw that they have a very powerful laptop, variations of it, but still a very powerful laptop that you can closely compare to the Pro models. They have that tablet, which still is a bit ridiculous in terms of size, but seems to be getting a lot of good feedback from the technological community. Their phones, I think, by now we can all admit that that S series, that Note series from S20,
23, even the lower one.
Moving forward. I started using an S21, as I'm sure you're aware. And I've been daily driving it with an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and boss, I'm an Apple fanboy. That's one thing I can openly admit. But that phone there,
karibu nyumbani,
kama hiyo ndio barabara hizo ma S21, 22, 23, then we are in trouble. We are in trouble. So so phones, obviously, there's no question. If they're not ahead, they're really in competition. And then the watches as well. I felt the watches are also very...
They are very nice watches.
They have almost every single smart functionality that an Apple Watch has. So, yeah, so I was looking at all of that, looking at Google the Google Pixel setup as well. Their phones are very, very good, even though they haven't done a lot of marketing in Africa. Google, you need to sort that out.
Yeah, actually, it's really rare to find one.
To find some good,
so we want some. Personally, I'm interested.
Yeah,
Google, kunaenda aje?
To test.
Later.
Yeah, because at least with Samsung, I've tested that. Okay, S21 is a very old phone, relatively. But you can see the upside. If that's what they are thinking about at that time, then you can see that there's a lot of upside with it. So I also explored the Pixel Pros, their watches as well, and earbuds, by the way. Let's not forget the earbuds, because again, that's part of the ecosystem. And where I'm at is that there is a case to be made for other people to kind of consider that. I'm still not sure that's the space I want to exist in, but I'm closely thinking about it, because let me be very, very honest. The performance is borderline similar. And with the fact that Windows 11 is integrating Copilot to the point where they're introducing like the key, a special key to all these different form factors. Both Apple need to sort that out, because I bought a MacBook purely from the point of view of creativity and productivity. 9
and also
times
its
out
functionality,
of 10,
it's top notch.
Yeah, its functionality is definitely top notch, but what I use it mainly for is the productivity aspect. If I can have a laptop that has Copilot embedded in it, I'm buying that laptop. I don't care how good a MacBook Pro is or a MacBook Air is. I'm buying that laptop, because some of the things me and you have seen when it comes to generative AI, and especially what Copilot and Gemini is doing, they have to figure that out. Because where I'm at now is I'm not only looking at the hardware side. Hardware, Apple will always be ahead, whether it's on a MacBook, an iMac. They'll always find a way to sneak ahead because of their silicon architectures. But if they don't sort out the user experience, specifically around generative AI, they're going to have an issue. Yeah. I don't know if you're experiencing something similar, but me, I'm seeing slowly moving towards an environment where I might decide to invest. It takes a long time to put together an ecosystem, but I might decide to move away from Apple's ecosystem and go into Samsung.
Now, what I'll really give into this is that, we become more like fanatics of given tech,
that's true.
given brand, and really uprooting someone from such environment, it needs a conviction.
Yeah, because remember, I hated Windows 11 by the way.
Vibaya sana, and I was shocked that
with a passion.
I was shocked that you are calling me, hey, Igib, and I've gotten something here.
I hated it with a passion, but I used it for like a month. It's very special.
But okay. Just building on to my point, it's not all about being a fanatic of a given thing or so crazy about a brand. It's how you get your given
maximize,
and also get to solve your maybe your challenges or any task that you're doing, you solve it in the best way possible that you get it. Now, personally, I've been on Android for a long time, and there are really good things coming up. And I'm certain that in our next, there's a component we have, where a segment we have that also just brings to light what's also growing on Android. However, what I want to bring on this is seeing what's happening with Apple, seeing what's happening with Samsung, seeing what's happening with Google. They are trying to bring the best out of what they have, like give the clientele, the users, the best experience that they can give. And there's a shift. There's a very huge shift. If you check around, there are those people who are really so much into iPhone. But if you see the landscape that Samsung is also taking, people are really getting there. Google Pixel. All in all, what you're doing, what's really happening, yes, it's a battle, but the user is really also getting the best as much as we are getting torn in between, but we are getting the best of technology.
And I think, by the way, let me just give a disclaimer. I'm not a tech reviewer by any stretch of imagination. I don't do that. I simply look at it from the point of view of a professional who's worked within the technological space for a decade plus. 10 years worth of experience. That's what I bring to the table. I look at it from that point of view and how I can be able to elevate, because our job life. You know how important it is to kind of enhance your productivity, enhance your creativity from day to day. So that's where I'm looking at it from. And as you've said, I think that I wouldn't call myself a fanatic. I'll maybe put myself in a category of a closed-minded person. I was a closed-minded person for a very long time in regards to exploring other ecosystems and even other operating systems.
You never wanted to hear of anything.
No. Even the day they launched it, I was like, hell no. You're wasting money. I actually told the organization, Arquict, which we both work for, that I didn't want an Arquict machine because I was okay with my... And they were willing to really go big because at that time is when we were working on the e-learning platform. And we wanted to make sure that we have, just proper infrastructure that can help us in figuring out how to manage that. So, I'm open to it. I know that me and you will be doing tests. We'll figure out a way to kind of run these tests, especially when it comes to the latest version of Windows 11, because I have around 115 volume licenses. I don't know if I told you. They are contributed from Microsoft TSI. So hopefully we can be able to set up some hardware, install on a few of them, and just see how it runs. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know how we can be able to document that. I think the production team will assist us on the same. And then more importantly, just the generative AI stuff, even as we lead toward that space. We're going to conduct a lot of tech breakdown programs for the podcast that will kind of just give us an opportunity to kind of break down all of this technology and explore the different user cases. So tafadhali, stay tuned because again, we're going to be covering, it's developers, this is the developers quarter. This next 2 or 3 months or so. We've already done one. So I think we have around 2 or 3 events remaining. So we want to make sure that we keep on testing all of these things as much as we can.
And the upcoming ones, we will bring you up close and candid so that you can also have the feel of what's really taking place. I know maybe some of our listeners may be quite so fresh into such tech environments, and just giving you the real glimpse of what's happening will be part of us in order to see you also consume the best technology around there.
So so that's what's happening. I'm hoping we can be able to create some time and really do this. And so we'll
if
come
it
back
pushes us to bring even hardware here so that people can also have a feel of it.
Definitely. You're a specialist in hardware, so you'll figure out how you can be able to make that happen. Otherwise, we are taking a short break and then we'll come back with the next segment. So we are back. And again, thank you very much for staying in tune. So on the next topic, we want to talk about ChatGPT. For those of you who are not aware, ChatGPT released their latest patch update. I believe it's called ChatGPT 4.0.
4.0,
so it's not 4.0.
No, it's 4.0.
It's 4.0. And one of the things I think we need to, or we all need to realize is, by the way, OpenAI is miles ahead of the rest. So somebody was asking me, which one do you prefer when it comes to some of these, especially chatbox or search engine related generative AI resources. And I was telling them that at this point, it's a bit difficult to kind of compare. Because ChatGPT is a bit ahead. Gemini rebranded from,
Bard.
From Bard. And Copilot is piloting. For lack of any better word. So it's at the pilot stage. So obviously OpenAI is a bit ahead, and you could tell in this presentation because I think one of the things that they some of the things that they introduced were a bit ahead of its time. And I know I'll be able to list them in a few. I just want to make sure that they're here. But I think one of the things that stood out to me, even before we talk about the technology, is the fact that they're very committed to the non-paying clientele. So even in this latest update, you'll find that a good number, around 60% of the updates will be accessible, obviously in limited capacity, but they'll be accessible.
I think it's a reality. They've discovered that there is a bigger clientele also who have not really subscribed into it, and it's like a very big market space that they can still tap into. And what's the best way to do it is small releases, like giving you at least a little drop so that you can see the test of it.
So it's a long game. I think most of us know it as the YouTube model, where YouTube was free for a very long time, but now slowly by slowly they started giving us ads as if tulitengeneza pamoja now. So by the time they are getting to 2, when they released the what is it called? The YouTube Premium. Ilikuwa haraka because now it was becoming.
But if you can also check what really made people go for premium, there are very key features that people really struggled with for a long time. One, you want to do something on the background and still listen to your very key music or some podcasts and stuff. So that gets uninterrupted kind of flow, and also just more tech into it, more user friendliness into it. So what I really like about what YouTube did is listening to this. Yes, okay, they took a long time, and I think for them is more like they've dominated. There's no one.
They made sure that they monopolized the market.
Yes, there's no one there. It's only them. So they've taken enough time. They've listened. However much it was a very lengthy process, but they've given it at last. And that's how I would also wish other tech giants also to do. Listen to your clientele,
work with them together,
and you are going to develop something that is user-friendly, that is more consumable.
Yeah, but anyway, we digress on the YouTube issue. We are taking note of the fact that again, that seems to be the long game here with ChatGPT. And it's making a lot of sense. Just keep on getting as big a community as you possibly can.
Sure.
And then when the time is right for you to now strike, and and by the way, that's not to say that they don't have premium versions. They have. It's just that the gap is not as big as maybe Gemini or Copilot, certainly from the price ranges that they've given in the last month or so. So, I think that's something that stood out to me. Another thing that was funny about the event is unlike the Gemini event and Copilot, theirs was very small and very cozy. Haikuwa na maneno mingi. Remember Google alituweka, and I know we'll talk about it, but alituweka for a full 20 minutes listening to, is it called trance music or what? So it was this whole over-dramatized thing, but for OpenAI, it was small, it was cozy, it was straight to the point. And so, I those are some of the things that I kind of just looked at and said, okay, I think this, if they can do more of this, then I think it will be okay. Now, on to the technology. First things first, there's a ChatGPT version for desktops. I know there's been a lot of misinformation around the fact that you can also use it on your desktop. Nope. There's a difference between a browser application and a desktop application.
Version,
What you've been using on your laptops and PCs and whatever, that has been a browser application. Right now, we are talking about an embedded desktop application, which I think is a big step forward. Sure. They've had a lot of success on the mobile and browser versions, and so it's nice to see that it will be embedded on the desktop and across all relevant applications and resources that you'll be using. So that's a nice step forward. Another thing that I realized, so for them, I think it's worth noting that how they look at their function, their pillars of function. They look at it through 3 specific windows: text, audio, vision. That's where ChatGPT mainly exists in. So on the text side, I think outside of the normal additions, they increase the number of tokens and context. So that means that the whole search engine experience is going to be enhanced significantly. They talked of memory, although I think the memory aspect, they brought it in earlier. It's been around 3 or 4 months of people using memory. I might be wrong, you can correct me on that. But yeah, they also highlighted that. And by then, that's very, very critical for some of us who deal with lots and lots of contexts and the tokens that come with that. It's always nice to have it be more conversational so that, to simplify it, it's like we work today, and then tomorrow, let's say we are working on something, we're around 50% done. And then tomorrow when we come and sit down, we can pick up from where you left from. Yeah, instead of coming and asking you, Igi, hiyo tena ni kazi gani hiyo?
Or you try to like copy all that work and paste it, and it has only its own limit or amount of text that you can really prompt into it.
Yeah. So they talked about that very, very briefly. I was able to also kind of use the desktop version to kind of make sure that nice. Those are some of the things that are there. And I, at least I can say without any sort of doubt that those are things that are integrated, and I'm hoping we can continue testing and seeing just how much context or how much context size or variation we can be able to engage with to ensure we fully we fully use the application and see what it can be able to do. Outside of that, there was the audio aspect. And so within the audio, I'm trying to remember some of the things that stood out. So the first thing...
For me, when it came to audio, there's something that I really liked. Especially when it comes to the conversation bit of it, where it can stage conversation and have that kind of a human feel within the conversation. Maybe me and you, and maybe we have the Gemini there. It can get interrupted, but still keep on the conversation. Now, if you compare this with other models, what they do, you give it more like, okay, you do a conversation with it, but it will take some time before it gets your feedback. So it has more like
it's almost like a half duplex.
Exactly.
For the other,
so it has to rely, first of all, on its own loading capability to craft this. But I really liked the ChatGPT 4.0 on how it's in time, like it's real, like it's giving you real time conversation. You can interrupt it, asking questions, and even cut it short, and even and it's bringing more like it's becoming more like real rather than
becoming a human being. Basically.
Exactly.
And that for me is what stood out. It's the fact that again, to regurgitate, while at the same time also offering my own view. It's the fact that one, within the audio model, you can have an actual conversation. No load times, no unsynchronized sort of responses. You're actually having a real conversation with an intelligent entity that can be able to borrow from wherever within seconds and share with you. So I saw even in their presentation, I don't know if you saw something similar. So they would have that discussion. And it would respond, it will show human emotion, it will understand jokes, sarcasm, all of these different things. Which is
actually talking about even being able to express human emotion, there is a concern around it. Like, what's the next phase of this technology? And what are we really throwing ourselves into? Is it really safe? Is it okay that we continue enjoying the way the technology is coming up? Or do we need to be cautious and at least think back and see on ways to sharpen it better? Because...
So funny enough... we saw that before this. So when I saw those comments before this presentation, I understood where they're coming from. But the way that they've, redefined that model, because let's be honest, that's not the one we were pitched to months ago. they've found a way of making it be more human, but at the end of it, still,
give it a distance.
Yeah, give it
a distance
thank you.
From, let it not be human. Let it be there. Okay. But let people see there's a gap between a human being and this machine.
Yeah. Actually, they did a very good job of establishing that, because that was a big
I also
concern.
liked it.
So, I saw throughout the test that they are able to have conversations with it, which I think was very, very cool. I like the fact that you can interrupt it to save on time, so that it's not this half-duplexed conversation where I have to wait for you to finish. Hizo ni maova tuliachia polisi. So the fact that you can interrupt, share, and actually not even just share, change its train of thought. I think that's something that I felt was very, very critical. Another thing that I looked at and said, okay, was live translation, and transcription. So we can sit here and have one person speaking in English and another one speaking in French, and it can live translate and share with you. So if I'm speaking in French, it translates and then shares with you. And in its translation, I like the fact that it's not just this generic, direct translation. So when it translates to you, it says, Thomas said, Ignatius added that, so it's intelligent enough to even capture the names if you've mentioned, and that's why now the memory capacity comes in. It's intelligent enough to capture the names and shape the conversation, especially if it's translating around those two parties, while at the same time also sharing captions, because again there might be some people who'd want to kind of say the captions in addition to sound, which I think was very amazing. And I know in a minute or so we'll talk about how that ecosystem is working, especially to power AI or to power ChatGPT. But from an audio perspective, those are some of the things that mainly stood out. And the fact that it's a lady, I know I'm being petty, the fact that it's a lady is a bit disarming, a little bit, at least unatulia. And I don't know if you noticed, towards the end, the lady blushed when she was given a compliment. Which was a nice touch. So wengi wetu wenye lazima tuwake game kidogo, we'll be practicing with that before we now apply these practicals because the way it's a genuine blush, because you could tell even the tonal variation. Hizi machines itatumaliza, because if I can do that afu niende hapa nistue Wambui na niangalie ni kama sijatupa game.
Unajua tu hapa hii melala.
I'm wasting time. So I like that. I understand the risks before we started really engaging, and that's why I'm telling you, ChatGPT is miles ahead of some of these companies in what they're doing, and that's why you'd see more accomplished versions of audio, vision, and text models. But my hope is that people can be able to elevate to that point, because I've seen others, by the way, in the way that they respond. I'll not name names, but you have some work to do. There's still some work that they need to do.
Now, there's a research done by DeepMind, who I think they work in line with ChatGPT, on to what extent this technology can either affect or even have a lot of control in what we do. For example, the research was stating that the technology it's becoming more addictive, and it can control whatever you do. And in a given example, there was this guy who he was taken to court because of breaching Windsor Castle security. Imagine going to the castle. Then he admitted that whatever pushed him to breach this security was based on the conversation that he has been having with the AI. They've been exchanging more than 5,000 texts, and now this AI convinced this gentleman,
that
go ahead, it's possible. And definitely, okay, whatever was taking place, so this guy was convinced that by the robot, it's possible, go ahead. So it's okay, the tech is good, but let's also be careful on how usichochwe tu.
Yeah, usichochwe. Because, it will just keep on, not to go too deep into the back end functionality and just how it's able to index and collate all of this
just
information.
Keeping tabs of how your conversation with it.
So it works in the same way that a search engine, obviously it's way overpowered, but it works in the same way that a search engine works in terms of, collating, indexing and all of that. So, it doesn't, I think the thing, and that's why they also don't want to jump into that other side, because if they make decisions based on human, I want to call it human, let me call them human limitations, which are just rules and guidelines, then that's where now the risk of it becoming too human comes in. So how it separates itself from the human experience is that it's just able to answer based on information that it's learning from, the global servers. So I think that's what happens. That's the risk you run while operating in that sort of space where, I'm just a machine. How do I rob State House? All I have to do is wait. I can see on Ruto's schedule that he's somewhere in the States enjoying life. Where is Gachagua? He's somewhere mixed up doing something. So, all these questions you're asking, to you, they seem like, okay, why would I be asking where this other guy is? But for it will just check and see, okay, where was the last known location that was documented for the president, the VP, and then share with you. So, yeah, that's a funny twist by there. I did say, I think I forgot about that.
No.
Yeah. So that's what's happening on audio. For vision, which is just a fancier way of, highlighting the photographic and video aspect. They didn't, I think, and this is what I'm realizing about ChatGPT, they don't have long keynotes. It was, I think, 6 minutes in total. So they aren't able to quite highlight a lot, but they're able to do this small exercise, 2 of them actually, where one, somebody was able to write an equation on a piece of paper, and then using the camera, it was able to not only capture the equation, but actually guide the person.
Even the calculation process with the answer. But do you think this is also kind of dangerous? If I have an assignment and I want to pursue maybe aeronautical engineering, and I'm always pinning on ChatGPT, giving me all the procedures, the answers. Are we going to produce half-baked engineers and thinking we've kicked it?
So you run the risk of that. Let's be honest. You run the risk of that. But I think that's why they're even smart in their presentation, by making sure that it wasn't about getting the answer, but having it guide you on
how to get
some of the things you need to consider. Which formulas am I using? Which formulas am I using? How am I breaking it down? And then at the end, now asking whether the answer that I have given is correct based on the structure I've provided. So as long as they keep it along those lines, where I'm using it almost like a facilitator, and that's why Gemini is, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes, that's why Gemini's gems are very, very important in today's modern day models that we're discussing, where I can be able to create personalized virtual assistants who play the role of a coach or even a teacher, rather than somebody who's giving you answers. You remember that fun bit within Gemini's presentation where they introduced this technology that will take all of your files and kind of provide audio versions of it and allow you to even participate and ask questions. So if they take it along those lines, to me, there's a future in which this is fully integrated into the education system. But if it's a question of reading a formula and reading an equation or a math problem and then just giving you an answer, then that's why I think they'll fail, which I think they've realized, and they're starting to kind of provide some nuance towards that specific process. Yeah. So there was that, although the equation was fairly simple. I know we haven't done math in a long time, but you remember the calculus classes. So it was relatively simple. The thing that shocked me a little bit, and I've been skeptical about this for a while, is its ability to read and understand code. For me, that's where I was a bit tricky. So I was very interested in seeing, even though they didn't do it for a long period, but I love the fact that they're also able to show in real time how it's able to read source code, understand what output. And even debug and share on maybe some of the things that you need to kind of rework or restructure in order to get the desired output. So I think that's amazing. I'm still interested in seeing how that is done on larger platforms, because again, that's very, very key. But I think I was very impressed by what it was able to do there. And even going on to the output now, to the actual page, it was even able to take it a step further and analyze some of the different variables that the website has presented. I think it was a weather pattern website, if I'm not wrong, weather or climate pattern website, one of those. And once they loaded the page, it was able to tell like which months the weather or the climate was the hottest, which ones were the coldest, what the y-axis was capturing, what the x-axis was capturing, and so on and so forth. So just from the point of view of its usability and just how simple it can be for people, for developers, or even just guys who are in the process of learning, I think that would be okay. And I know for even a simplified version where you're just walking around with it and maybe trying to, you're walking around it and trying to capture some of the things that even in this studio, I know people will not be able to see. If I point it to the light, if I point it to the cameras, if I point it to the machine, it can be able to give me an overview. Yeah. So there's a lot of user cases for it. But I think for me, what stood out above everything else is the debugging, the reading and debugging of the source code, and just the audio side, especially around real-time conversations and translation. Yeah. So those are the things that stood out to me. Again, prices seem to be very user-friendly. I love the fact that most of these things will be free for all. And as we said, we'll be testing, Ignatius and I will be testing this over the next 30 days or so. And I will be giving you reactions in real time so that hizo vitu zote alisema tuweze ku at least hakikisha that they are working before we recommend one that works. And we have no bias by there, despite our parent organization having a strong partnership with Microsoft. If your product sucks, it sucks. So hopefully we'll be able to...
We are just giving reality.
Because again, even though we are not tech reviewers, we'd want to talk to peers about maybe some of the experiences we have dealing with this technology. And so it's going to be a fun 30 days. But I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts as to what the experience was like for you and what you're looking forward to.
I think it's like we found ourselves in more or less like similar interest. For me, I really like the bit of it of how one can stage a conversation. And I can remember some time back, I used when now Google search was really, or Google search was really being implemented on Android devices, where you could click, give it a question and give it time to listen, then give your feedback. And there were a lot of concerns of maybe someone's pronunciation, accent, and things like that. But now if you compare it with whatever is coming out, it's more like human on the other side listening to you and giving you feedback. However, it's a machine that has been made to interact with you in real time. So that's really what also crossed my mind and I liked so much. And the other bit that I presented on the concerns how far do we want to interact with it, and what are the ways we need to, as much as we are interacting with it, how do we need to be careful not to overdo. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, all in all, we enjoyed the event. By the amount of virtual events that we've done, it's been crazy, but that's a topic for another day. And yeah, we are looking forward to conducting our tests and hopefully finding a platform. We have, I think, a workshop with our internal staff where we'll be able to discuss this and nausea and also practice it to some extent. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so moving forward, again, Ignatius and I were on tour, on a virtual tour, exploring all of these different, wonderful generative AI products. So I think it was last week, we were able to, again, we were privileged enough to be able to attend the Google I/O keynote. And we'll be very, very honest, I think this is the first time me and Ignatius are attending one together. Yeah, originally we thought that it was going to be a typical keynote where we talk of bits of hardware, software. But my friend, we were wrong. Straight from the first sentence, it was Gemini all day.
The way.
So, yeah, we attended the event. Personally, I enjoyed it. I think that I saw some comments, by the way, online saying that it was a bit stale. But I think for me, tech events should just be that. I don't want this whole creative jumping. I don't know which artist is performing. I don't care about all of that nonsense. Take me to the technology, have me understand it at face value and at binary level. And that's when I'll be able to make a judgment on whether it's a good product or not. So I like the fact that it was relatively stale, which I don't understand, because there was that 20 minutes at the very beginning where this guy was performing dance music. So I don't know why people didn't feel that that's enough. But anyway, we digress once again. Yeah, so in general, I felt good about the event. I know we'll talk about the different technologies that stood out for both of us. But yeah, good event, straight to the point, various speakers, which I loved a lot of minority groups, which I don't know if you noticed. It's always good to see presentation, even though it's not necessarily African, but it's good to see
embracing
people of
color,
all, presenting.
cutting across all the areas.
Especially the responsible generative AI guy at the very end. Huyo ni Mwafrika, huyo ni wetu. Huyo ni
tuko counted
kama sio wanyama. Wanyama wanyunyi yuko hapo. Yuko hapo.
Okay.
But anyway, what did you feel about the event just in general before we go into the tech?
In general, for me, it came as a shocker, honestly, because we all had more like already more like a centered expectation, but they gave us a shocker. From minute one, it was totally different, but all in all, I enjoyed because I really wanted to see the next phase of technology, and starting from there, for me, it's okay.
Okay, so stuff that stood out for you, maybe you can just share with us briefly. What are some of the things that stood out for you throughout the presentation? I know we'll give a very detailed, there's an episode we are working on where we really give a detailed response in real time to some of the things that they talked about. But in summary, what are some of the things that stood out for you?
For me, there are two key areas that I really liked, and specifically, I'll just pan it quickly to my Android device. I really liked the technology that is being now embedded into the Android ecosystem. Specifically, there is this key feature on security that is going to help a lot, is by Gemini Nano, whereby it can detect a fraud kind of conversation or phone call and tell you that this is not a genuine person. I really loved it because in Kenya, let me just be typical. In Kenya, we are struggling a lot, and I know it's globally, where you have very funny phone calls, someone telling you that, oh, your bank has an issue, we want to transfer you to this other account, can you send us your details? So no bank can do that. And the Gemini being embedded within the system is going to always detect this and alert you on it.
Actually, just a fun fact around that. Kenya is actually number one when it comes to the country with the most frequent cyber attacks.
Really?
We are number one in Africa.
So watu wainda wanafanya kazi?
It's not even close. It's not even close. And it goes down. And that's why for me, these days, I'm usually very iffy with sharing. I can share my name, but my number and my ID, you have to convince me. I've had very, very big arguments with people at the reception, whether it's in buildings, and even watchmen and women, which, by the way, full disclosure, I highly respect. I just don't think that you can force me to give you my ID if I don't want to. Whether it's legal or not, hiyo mtamua na leaders wenyu. But yeah, for me, it stems from that. It stems from that. That's why you are seeing those attacks really, because you go somewhere, you share your number, you share ID, unaenda kwa M-Pesa, you mishandle the way you are sharing this information. Then all of a sudden, I remember a colleague of ours who was robbed of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Not mention the name, but and this is a very senior partner, not even an employee, senior partner who messed around and got his phone hacked. So everything from sending emails to friends to contribute to I don't know what, all the way to just flashing out his M-Pesa and bank account. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's a very key
important tool.
feature and a tool that will really help in securing our conversation, our daily, even personal data. The other thing that also struck me that was coming on board Gemini being embedded to Android is the searching feature, whereby there's circles to search. And for example, I really like your shoes, Tom, and I want to know which type of shoe it is, maybe how much and where I can get it. So it's very quick. I can just circle to it and I'll get more information, then go and purchase it. Rather than, I'm always seeing Ian with a shoe and I really don't know which model, but nikisako nipata nile bonoko, tutajua pia. Yeah, but it's a very good feature.
In the Nexco.
Yeah.
I think they borrowed that from the Samsung UI.
Yeah, it has been there for some time, but it's a good feature. It's a good feature as well. Now, the other thing is the search overview or AI overview search that whenever you do your search on search engine, it gives you overview, a very detailed overview, rather than giving you search engine results pages like websites relating to this. It comprises for you an overview of really what you're looking for. Rather than wasting a lot of time flipping pages, you can also pin to this overview and get directly the content that you wanted.
So it almost like it collates everything and indexes it on the results
it summarizes it. It's a very good feature as well. And lastly was on some infrastructure that were very key. One of it is one of it was how they're using technology within the AI department, the Gemini department, where they have water cooling systems within their infrastructure, and it's top-notch.
I know that would pick your attention.
Kabisa, and the Trillium TPU. That thing is amazing. And if you see how the TPU is being used, basically it's on the high-end level of chips, CPU's chips, because our normal desktops or our normal laptops uses CPU, which is
the
more
most performing,
comprised. The most performing. It uses CPUs, which are more comprised into giving a user or one-to-one user interaction. When you talk about TPUs, they are more focused on language models or large large centers or large data centers that really interact with AI platforms and systems
So
like that.
basically LMMs and
LMMs, yeah. And the other thing they also highlighted on, though briefly, was their subsea cable system, which is one of the best. It's covering almost 2 million kilometers.
Oof, okay.
2 million miles, which is equivalent to 3.2 million 2 million kilometers. So it's quite lengthy, and they want to just continue serving. I hope with the current outages that we've been having is also going to reduce if also those kind of cables pan to our side as well. Yeah, that's on my side. I don't know, maybe from
Kenya, when people are talking of TPUs and this government is...
It's a growth process. Wacha asira.
we'll address. Yeah. So I think those are some very cool insights, Ignatius. I agree with you. I think the TPU infrastructure is maybe one that for the first time, I think they're able to speak about it at length. And I think it piqued my interest a lot. As to whether we'll ever get a TPU functioning machine, I think that's miles
too
heavy.
Ahead.
Yeah, but you never know. At the rate at which we are consuming
you
technology.
Want a working data center?
In the country, why not? Not alone. What would I be doing with a full data center? That's not going to. Yeah, but here in the country, it can provide jobs for us, Ignatius. We have to think 10 years ahead and see what we'll be doing. So that's something that stood out to me a lot as well. Still in keeping with hardware, on the issue of adding or increasing the tokens to 1 million, that to me, that's a big step.
It's a big step.
Because that tokens come with a lot of space for context. And if you have a large enough context window, then you can be able to do unimaginable things with generative AI.
Talking about that, would you prefer someone telling you, I'm giving you 2 million tokens, and someone telling you, I'm giving you unlimited tokens? And in the real time, in the real scenario, you end up finding yourself like, this unlimited is really, it's limited, in fact.
For me, I think it's the same thing, because as I shared with you when we were doing the live reactions, 1 million tokens is not a joke. We are talking about computing capability that I don't think you can be able to achieve at individual level. But it's just nice to see that it's there. I think if you're paying for something, especially if you're working for corporate, it's kind of nice to hang around that belt and talk about the fact that you have around 1 million tokens, because you don't get to even use, and this is at the highest computing capability. You don't even use a third of that. You don't even use a third of that. Because I'll give you an example. There's something that they shared there where I think they're using an example of somebody doing some research. They're working on a research paper, and so they had multiple PDF documents, one having the thesis, one having issues to do with the data, the overall, the overall context and all of these different things. So they were amounting to like close to, 50 to around 60 files. And it was still able to go through that very, very
and
quickly.
Give you...
and not only understand, but give you insight and knowledge on some of the things that you need to work on. That alone didn't even take even 10% of the contextual space and number of tokens that had been provided with the Gemini 1.5 Pro. So it's a lot of power. And I think in keeping with what we shared when we talked about the iPad series, where you are seeing hardware and software really overshooting, because I think they've seen what they want to where they want to exist in the future. And they want hardware to not be an issue once they start moving towards that space. So yeah, 1 million tokens with a very large context window, I think that's something that's very, very cool. The price, which we'll talk about in a few minutes' time, I think is also something that stood out. Outside of that, I think for me, there are two key areas that stood out. So on the Gemini presentation, try to see on my notes, I think one of the things that stood out was the live function. So live is very, very similar to what we discussed in ChatGPT, where typically in the Copilot chat box, it has 3 modules as well. You can be able to input and engage in data with text format, voice, and now vision. So similar to ChatGPT, you can do the same. And I think what I love about, for them, they're calling it live. But now with live, you can be able to have real-time conversations with the Copilot resource, as well as also use the camera to be able to capture objects and get information or knowledge about them within that specific space. They didn't really go into how it's able to work with equations, but I think that was covered in, what was it? Was it Project? What was the name? Project Astra. I think that was covered.
Because it could also detect code, indicate what source code it is, also solve. But Project Astra is huge.
Yeah, that's
it's
also
a very pivotal tool that will come out.
In fact, I wanted to just make sure that I think we will have to do just an episode specifically speaking on Project Astra. We'll figure it out. Welcome to behind the scenes, but we'll figure it out. So at least for general users who we are targeting with this podcast, I think that aspect around just being able to work with a multimedia approach when it comes to using their chat box, I think that was amazing. Although there are a lot of similarities to ChatGPT, but that's what happens when you're an industry leader. Outside of that, I think the other thing that I noticed that was kind of important, and that's what they're talking about, is the gems. Yeah, I loved the gems. I told you.
Talked of the gems so many times.
I loved the gems idea. I think it's going to be revolutionized in a way that maybe most people are not quite sure now, but let me tell you the truth. For some of us who deal with high levels of productivity, that's going to be a game changer. So essentially what it is, for the audience listening to, it's a personalized virtual assistant, one that you get to personalize yourself. So for example, if you're a programmer, you can be able to program your virtual assistant to be able to act as a source code reviewer.
Or whenever you're done with some specific task, it can come on board to help you maybe just refine it.
And refine. So if you're a sound engineer, it can be able to now play the role of, I don't call it a co-producer because it's not necessarily my space, but it can work with you in identifying and building sound. If you're in the program space, you're dealing with a lot of report, it can come in as a proofreader or, word development, is it document development, something along those lines. So you can customize it based on what you're doing. We are planning for an event, so you can have it come in and be an activity tracker, so that instead of waiting for my emails at 12 as you normally do, you can always interact with this other one. And the good thing is that once you develop these modeled virtual assistants, you can be able to save them and use them for as long as you want. So I like that. I think it's amazing. The knowledge base is one that continues to grow. So even if you continue to think of different virtual assistant models that you want to bring in, it has the capacity to be able to learn what that will entail through what you give it and what's also on its global database, and come up with the perfect virtual assistant for that. So I think that for me is very, very amazing. I'm looking forward to test that more than anything else. And so within the Gemini space, that including the 1 million tokens that we talked about, I think those are very key things that I'm excited to test moving forward. On the workspace, there are just two things that maybe I'll highlight very, very quickly. So there's the issue of, so first of all, maybe before I get there, it's important to understand that when it comes to Gemini productivity, there are three spaces in which it mainly exists in. So one is on helping the user on how to write, how to organize, and how to visualize. Those are the three key pillars within productivity that it exists in. How to write, how to organize, and how to visualize, which we can all agree, I think, it's mainly what productivity is in an office setting. So within that space, I think the things that stood out, there was this funny exercise that they did where the lady, I'm forgetting the name, I won't butcher it, but the lady was able to use auto-summarize on her emails, where basically what happens is that if you have like 6 or 7 emails within one thread,
it can all be bundled,
summarize
and give you the key pointer and
items.
action. I remember
and,
that.
And one small thing that we missed is that it doesn't have to be within the same thread. It can do that in multiple threads.
For me, I understood it in that level, that it's just multiple emails. Because you remember, there's this guy who requested quotations to repair the roof, and it was different emails being
the different vendors
clocking in, different vendors. So definitely from different emails, not even within one thread. One thread.
Yeah. So I felt that was cool. I know you don't read emails, Ignatius, so there's no need.
Please launch it, Raka.
So I know there are people who don't read emails in our office. So if you can be able to have that and just highlight the documents, they listen to the podcast and start bashing us. But we'll be happy to train those people on how it's used once it eventually reaches our local space. Yeah, I think that stood out for me a lot. The auto-response thing has a lot of potential, but I'm still iffy on its learning capabilities. They used a very I don't want to call it small-minded example, but they used a very specific, a very targeted example, which is now the issue of the prices, or I'm forgetting the term. Yeah, the vouchers that they got from those guys. So that's a very targeted example. I would want to see how it can be able to work with a larger conversation set.
Okay, something funny that is crossing my mind. I don't know if you've seen different scenarios whereby a kid has used their parents' credit card and has bought I don't know, 1 million packets of sweets with a credit card, and all this is being mailed to their to their home address, and the parent is like, "Did I make an order?
Yeah.
Where's this coming from?" Then the kid presents this credit card, and the mother is like, "Whoa, so my credit card has been used to purchase
all of this."
Yeah. So I'm bringing this on board because imagine a scenario whereby you're using the auto reply and stuff, then it messes you in that level.
Yeah, so that's the thing for me. I wanted to see a little bit more about how that's managed, because auto response is always cool enough, especially if it's within context of a conversation that you're having. That's fine. It's a powerful tool. How is it being managed? I think that's what I'm hoping they can kind of enhance on as we continue, so that we can see. But the auto-summary thing, I think, is fine.
You may have a conversation with a supplier, but you change your mind and say that, no, I'm not going to reply to it. I'm just going to wait. But what happens with the auto reply? It's going to detect that there's a conversation that should be winding up. Why don't I pick it? Why don't I pick it up and wind up with it? Then you're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So these are also key areas that
it's tricky. And Kenyans. Kenyans. Sometimes once we feel like a process is easy, we just press even without thinking. So yeah, that needs to be opened up a little bit so that we understand the space.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of potential there. The last thing that I just want to touch on, because I know, again, we're going to cover this a lot on the other stream. I loved the whole ecosystem aspect of the productivity space or presentation that was given. And I think it was all encapsulated with this example where you have, let's say, still within the email setup, and I'll use our case study as an example. We were in the process of planning something that's very, very big.
Sure.
And for us to be able to execute it in the way that we want, multiple departments have to play a role. So what I saw, there are two things that I saw. The first one was the fact that still within the email structure, you can be able to prompt the Gemini resource to be able to scan your entire emails between date X and Y and collect all the receipts.
Oh, yeah.
All the receipts that are there based on the expenses. And not only save them on Google Drive, that's just one of the features, but actually prompt it when it's on Google Drive to create a spreadsheet where now all those expenses are kind of catered.
So you're not even going to do the dirty work of data entry and aligning all these.
Which is the worst thing about reporting, by the way. So being able, that's why the whole ecosystem for me, it just comes in, and again, it needs to be used, because the fact that I can work with 3, 4, 5, 6 different applications in transferring data from point X to Y. And by the way, let's not even call it data. This is processed information. I can push it from application 1 to all of these other ones, and not only store it, but analyze it and use it for different reasons. In Excel, I think that's something that stood out. The last thing, ya mwisho tu kabisa, is the virtual teammate thing. I don't know if you saw that. The virtual teammate is it's one thing that stood out for me, because again, still within that small case study that we have, you're planning for a big event. There are various chat rooms. There's the venue committee. There's the awareness creation committee. There's the human capacity side. And so what typically happens is that somebody will create a virtual teammate bot and now place it in all of these different rooms, so that in cases where, let's say, for example, within the content development space, there are some storyboards or ideas that they have about how to create awareness about the event. Typically, they have to go through an approval process.
Sure.
So instead of going back to see, okay, was this process approved by the CEO, the project lead, or the entire team, the virtual teammate can just go through, scan it all for you in real time, and tell you whether it's been approved or not.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember.
So that's just one of those examples. If another one would be maybe if there's an action item that you are given, you see how you can be able to go into the Teams chat and highlight, let's say, at Ignatius, I need the report for this period to that period. So maybe you haven't seen it, and you're coming in to ask, are there any specific assignments tasked to you?
Then
So you can be able to just quickly search and provide. And outside of that, because again, that's just tracking, you can actually be able to program it to be able to automate some of the processes that are going on. So for example, if there are like 8 or 10 actions that have been finished on day X, it can be able at the end of the working period, can be able to give you all of the tasks that have been finished, by who and at what time. So it's not just tracking. You can actually dictate what it can be able to do outside of that. So those are some of the things that stand out for me. I know there's a lot that we covered on Gemini. We can't be able to fit it all into this specific episode.
Sure.
But I'm looking forward to the other one that we'll release, where it will have a more detailed conversations. But from a productivity aspect, those are the areas that I kind of saw, and I was like, okay, we definitely need to test all of this. So I think we can take one last break. I know it's been a heavy tech episode, so we'll take one last break. And then when we come back, we'll have a deep dive around where we are as a country and maybe what we need to do. So, tuonane. We are back for the final segment. I know it's been a long episode, but trust me, It's the tech quarter of the year. There's quite a lot that we need to talk about. And I'm sure we'll be able to continue engaging and simplifying. I know this was the first episode is always the toughest on the tech period, because you really just have to address as they come. But as we continue, we'll be able to now break it down for you guys so that you can be able to, have a clear understanding of the different user cases you can pursue. So for this week's deep dive, I just wanted to express a slight concern. It's not fully blown at this point, but I still feel it's worth addressing, because I feel as if we are falling behind in terms of our roadmap in the AI journey. And I'll tell you where this came from. I attended, Aquict was invited for a Microsoft event, which I went and presented the CEO in. And essentially, the event was just about exploring AI and how it can be able to impact key socio-economic pillars within our country. And there was a lot of spirited discussion around its capabilities and how it can be able to essentially shape our landscape moving forward. But I felt as if we missed an opportunity to address how it impacts the common man. How does it impact the small MSME? How does it impact, guys who are in agriculture, guys who are in health, guys who are in the middle of learning and in higher level education? I felt we missed that. And it's been a recurring theme. And I feel that's why we are not necessarily, people are not biting onto it in the way that we had pictured it. I think for some of us who had participated even in earlier models, I think the idea was always to have it be bought into in the same way that M-Pesa was done.
Yeah.
But clearly we are not getting there. And it's not that we are failing, just to be very clear, don't come and kill us. We are just saying that the uptake could be a little bit more quicker. And so, for me, I feel as if we need to come together as the development sector, especially within ICT4D, the private sector and government, and figure out how best we can be able to integrate this to our day-to-day activities. Because let's be very clear, AI is a literacy issue. It's not a technical. It's not a technical issue. It's not there for the elite tech people to be able to engage with. That's a very small percent, lesser than 10, probably around 5 to 6%. And I'm talking about global numbers. So this is meant to help the normal, not the normal. It's meant to help the citizenship, not that small percentage. And I just think that we are moving away from that to the point where, you remember even when I was in your end last year, with every point that was being made, it's almost as if I had to start from a defensive point of view because of the negative press that AI has already gotten before I move them to a space where they can see the positive side of it. And you've been given 10 minutes or so, and it's not even 10 consistent minutes. It's broken down. So, I didn't feel like I did a good enough job in shining a positive light on AI because of time, obviously. But I also realized that it's a very big task that needs to be handled by multiple people, multiple sectors, in order to ensure that this resource is used. Because you've seen the power. I've seen the power. We've all experienced it at individual, at institution, and at organization level. We just need to figure out a way of sharing that and allowing people to also experience in their own way. So my hope is that even as we continue with this development space, there are a lot of activities we are planning. There's a summit, I think. This is the first time I'm mentioning the name summit. There's a summit that we are planning. We'll share a lot more, I think, as the days go. But those are some of the things we want to address. Figuring out what digital literacy is in 2024, what are the key components, and how can we get the citizenship to start using these resources? Because those days of, I know how to use the internet is not enough. I know how to be able to send and receive emails is not enough. I know how to develop websites and mobile app. A class 5 child can be able to develop a website easily. You learned about code even before you finished school. So there's nothing special about that skill. I don't care how big your app becomes. It can be done by anyone, especially with some of the resources and tools that we have on DevOps and so on and so forth. It can be literally done by anyone. The next step now we need to take is around content, and more specifically generative AI. So I'm closely following just as a spectator, but also as an agent within the development space. I'm closely following to see what people are doing so that we can be able to tap into that. But we need to do something. Nigeria, like usual, is miles ahead of us. They're already, I think they're the only country, either Nigeria, Egypt, or Morocco.
South Africa as well.
South Africa as well. But in terms of having a minister of AI, I think it's only one country in Africa. Yeah. So instead of all of them, I keep hearing, I think...
There's a minister of AI.
There's a minister of AI.
Which country?
I think it's Nigeria, if I'm not wrong. I need to search that. But I think it's Nigeria, because Nigeria is the one that they've even moved a step forward and developed multilingual AI models. Yeah. So Wakina Yoruba, they have models that can be able to understand that sort of language. So we need to figure it out. At national government level, all of these CAS positions you keep on create ones that actually matter. For the private sector and development sector, all these investments that we are looking for, let's move them towards creating real impact. And I can guarantee you that that's all going to be determined by how we use technology, and at the front of it, how we engage in with AI moving forward. So that's my deep dive. It's a short one, but I don't know, as we close out, what thoughts you have about maybe what needs to be done to kind of move, because clearly it's an issue. We have countries that are 100 miles ahead of us, and they're not stopping. And we are still figuring out how to use e-citizen and stuff.
Now, there are key areas that you've pointed out, and it's on the open, actually, because let me start with the gig economy. The gig economy that has been disrupted greatly. We had our freelancers who are really earning a lot from gig economy, but at the moment they can't, because of how the Western world has really embraced AI,
and they're really defining their workflow.
They're implementing in their daily, so they don't need so much of manpower from our side that was really churning a lot to them. So that's a very good example. What I would really say is these uptake of AI, it's not even to be championed so much with even the government or even big institution. You as a person, what are you really doing? What's your focus? What do you really want to continue doing your job in that traditional manner? People are embracing faster ways of doing things by embracing technology that is there. For example, personally, these days I don't write emails. What I do is, yes, I read an email, actually do a structure for it on GPT, and I get a very refined and concise reply to that. And it really speaks into what you want. If it's not, you can continue prompting it more and more. But all in all, what I'm saying is, you can do much within a little space and little time, and it's all about what do you really want. And don't wait for someone to come and with a lot of siren or with a lot of shout like, oh, there is this, that. It's about what you also want on yourself.
But obviously this is appreciating that maybe some of them don't have the information.
That's true.
And that's why now these bodies have to come together and figure out how to relate now in those, especially those informal settlements.
Yeah, so that's the bit of it, and also just employing the producers, the developers of these high-end system, very intelligent system. Let us see on how it doesn't end up like social media that is more addictive, but let it be something that is a tool that can be used by someone to solve problem, not to create problem. Let it be intelligent also to detect if it's being manhandled or being misused.
Mishandled, yeah.
Yes, okay, being mishandled, so that it can also help in mitigating the foreseen misbehavior of or misuse of such technology.
Yeah, so that's important. I love the fact that it's a call to action for everybody.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you've held me responsible as well. I think that's the good thing about calling somebody out on their BS. Just make sure that if you're speaking about solutions that you want to see, you are out there figuring out what you can do to be able to now ensure that progress or success is going on. So, hopefully this is heard by the right people. And we'll see how we can be able to collaborate. Sisi hatujifichangi. If you want to see us in our different offices, you know how to get us. But for the rest of the listenership, it's been a wonderful episode. Again, we hope that our moderators will come back so that they can be able to help us and guide us, because we are tech enthusiasts here. So we can talk about tech the whole day. So that's why it's important to have somebody to kind of moderate. But we've tried our best, Iggy. Imejaribu. If there are issues in terms of being too techy, again, the tech breakdowns will take care of that. But for the rest of the listenership, it's been an honor, again, taking part in this. And don't forget to click on that subscribe button. And let's let this community grow and continue talking about ICT for development for the sake of this country. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you. Let's move together.